kids just buried me, you know? I was like, throwing pictures. Some kids are like, sign my shoe, you know, signing their shoe. I'm doing all this, and I'm going like, what the heck is going on? The teachers are like, you know, and I go, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was going to get out of control like this. They're like, we've never had this happen, you know? So this is like, I'm going like, what in the heck? I'm just like, I couldn't even believe this was happening, right? I told him I didn't have a bed till I was this old, so I really want to help kids have that, you know, because it sucks not sleeping on the floor. I mean, there was a point where I was sleeping on a coffee table because the apartment that we lived in was cockroach-infested. So, you know, you sleep on the ground, you're going to get covered by cockroaches. So I'm in high school, and there's back in those days, for people who are familiar with that career day, they'd have these books, these big fat books that had all these type of careers, and then you'd open the book and it'd give you a description on the career, you know. And so the first thing I do is like, I'm already got this in my head, I could do radio, and I could do that. So I start looking for radio broadcasting or radio. So I saw radio broadcasting, and that's when I'm looking at it, and I'm going like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I'm trying to see what you need to be you know, in radio broadcasting. And that's when one of the counselors comes up to me and he says, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm, you know, looking at careers, man. I'm trying to check it out. He goes, what is that? And I go, oh, radio broadcasting. I'm like, yeah, you know. And so he goes, I've never seen you talk. You couldn't do that. He goes, you know what? And not only that, that's really hard to get into radio. And like I said, the community was the one who wanted me here. They're the ones who voted me in here. And I ended up winning it, you know. I ended up winning, which the contest was to win a 3-month summer job, late night show. You got $1,000, you know, bonus, and then you got a year's supply of Mountain Dew.
This is Eagle Freedom Presents Showtime.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Here's your host, Destin Rogers.
All right, and thank you very much for joining us. I am your host, Destin Rogers, and this is Eagle Freedom Presents. By the way, our thanks to Mad Guz and the Mojos for letting us use their song, One Night in Vegas, in our show, and we'll have you information on them at the end of the show. Eagle Freedom Presents brings meaningful conversations to life with individuals who exemplify our R.I.O philosophy, and that's R.I.O, of Rise, Inspire, and Overcome. And I think once we're done with our show today, you'll discover that our guest has done just that. Now, imagine, if you will, you're in high school and you have a career day and you're checking out what you want to do, and you find out, in this case, that you want to get into radio broadcasting, and a counselor comes up to you and asks you what you're looking at. You tell him your dream, and he persuades you to do something else. We're going to find about that story and more here in just a few. But let me tell you about my guest today. My guest has just recently celebrated 20 years in radio broadcasting. He was recently awarded Idaho's Best Radio Show in the Central Valley. He is a dedicated father and husband. He is a veteran. And hopefully, as we'll see sometime in this interview, he is a man of many voices. And I'm happy to say that he's also a very good friend of mine. Would you please welcome to the show, all the way from studios in Idaho, my good friend, Joey Bravo. Joey, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, my man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, we go back quite a few years. We've gotten to know each other, and getting to know you and hearing your journey about, you know, the dream that you had to be on radio. I think it's something that's really going to inspire a lot of people, because it's got a good message about really what it means to pursue your dreams, despite the things that you're being told.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of obstacles, obviously, that we all go through, you know, and it really just depends on what you do when you come out the other side, and how you remain resilient, and just, you know, that inner strength that you need to keep moving forward. You know, you were talking about, you know, having that dream as to be in radio. Like, I didn't really know that that's what I wanted to do. It all started, we were talking about voices and stuff like that. Like, I grew up pretty broke, pretty poor. I honestly didn't even know I was as poor as I was until I was like 10 or 11 is when I realized that I really didn't have anything. So like, a lot of the times what I would do is I'd find, hardship or humor in hardship. While doing that, we didn't have obviously money for toys or things like that. So I really relied on my creativity to kind of entertain myself and also to entertain those around me, my sister, my cousins, and stuff like that growing up. So uh, we'd always watch one channel, right? And I think it was like Channel 5. I can't remember. It was.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say Channel 5 because it just sounds right. But when you had those old TVs that you needed pliers to turn the channel and stuff like that, and usually you just kept it on one channel because you had no cable. So I just grew up watching a lot of shows, a lot of TV shows, a lot of the superhero shows. I mean, everything from Spider-Man to Batman and Robin to the Incredible Hulk, even the Greatest American Hero.
right, right. Well, before
And
now, as we get into this, let's bring everybody kind of up to speed. Tell us a little bit about your family. I mean, how you have a loving mother and father. They worked very hard. Your dad was a very hard worker. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing before we get into this.
well, my mom and my father, they were together when I was young till I was about 5 years old, 6 years old, and then they weren't together anymore. But that and that relationship in general is kind of a hard one to explain. Um, I'm the only son of both my father and my mother. I have half brothers and half sisters. So really, I grew up mostly uh, growing years until I was about 15 with just my mom. So we grew up basically working the fields, as migrant workers. My mom, she tried her best to make sure that we were at least fed. So, we would work all types of fields. We worked pretty much picked everything. I know at 10 years old, you're not supposed to be working, but we had to do what we had to do to help the family. Obviously, we were on the payroll, but we were, helping the picking just so because the more boxes you pick, the more money you make per box. So, I was picking everything that you could think of that's at your grocery store, everything from lemons to oranges to olives, raspberries, cherries, strawberries. I mean, you name it, I picked it and helped out. I think the only one that I didn't do was grapes. That's because they have that knife. They didn't
Okay.
trust me with the knife just yet. But we would work all these fields, so a lot of the times we would migrate wherever the work was at. So for us, being that we were always looking for work, and it was just what's the next job, we were always moving from place to place. So I didn't go to the same school, um, but once. So one year is one school, the next year is different school. So there was always different schools every year. I didn't go consistently to one school till I hit sophomore year. But yeah, just growing up like that, just having to fend for ourselves. I mean, my mom got with her then husband, which was the father of my three younger sibling brothers. And so when they got together when I was 7, so like about 2 years later. And so that's kind of how I started working the fields like that, because that's what he would do. So he would, we would go everywhere, everywhere from, the West Coast, California to Oregon, Washington, picking apples and whatever. So we would go all these different places, but there was a point where there was we were looking for work. We're like kind of in limbo. There was no jobs. So I think the apples didn't start till this time or whatever. So my stepdad's like, well, we got to find some work, and we knew a friend of ours that was running some fields out here in Idaho, um, hoeing beets. So you just clean the weeds out the beets and whatnot. So that's where I went, started working there, and that's how I was introduced to Idaho back in the 80s. And so I'd come out here and do that. But yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things. Every time we come back the next summer, then I go to a different school. There was even a one summer where I honestly I didn't even realize we were homeless really. Because again, I was really poor. I didn't really understand, what it was to have money and whatnot. But anyways, we lived in a van for a whole summer. Like we lived in this van. You know those vans that would pop up that have the pop up tents. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so one of those pop up tents. So it was at that point we already had two younger siblings. So it was my older sister and I and my two younger siblings, my mom and stepdad, and we all lived in this van. And we would just park at the field and that we were going to work. That's where we would act like we were there to work. And then as soon as everybody left, we would go back and park in the field somewhere hidden. And then we'd wake up in the morning and go back to work again. So that happened a lot. But yeah, honestly, like I said, I mean, we had a place to live in, but it was a
Yeah.
van.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, you didn't know any different, growing up that, the situation you were in because you were around the other elements. So you didn't know, you know, really what existed outside that because you were in this group, I guess, your community. So you didn't really understand that there was anything else. This is just how you were raised, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then, we only had like a couple of outfits for school, and my shoes were either a pair of work shoes or shoes for school. But when work was over, then our shoes were so tore up. I only had one pair of shoes. So when I would go to school, my mom would say, "Okay, you got to take off your shoes when you get home because you can't ruin your school shoes." So I'd walk around barefoot all the time. I'll see if I can find that picture and I'll send it to you. Uh, in that time frame, and you see, I got no shoes on, and I always make jokes that my feet were so callous I could walk through glass, which I did once. I bet these kids that I could without cutting my feet, but they were that callous that I walked through glass. I ended up getting a bunch of quarters. I was always trying to find ways to hustle kids for quarters.
Well, look at that. You're an entrepreneur early in life.
Yeah, man, I was always trying to find stuff. I mean, I even when they do the little transistors and they use shock and see how long you could hold on to the shock. I got so good at those because I watched Bruce Lee movies and remember how he shocked himself. And I thought like, oh, I could do this like Bruce Lee. So I'd last the longest to get more quarters. I'd be walking around like sound like a piggy bank. Ching, 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 ching.
Well,
That's how I play video games.
that kind of explains a lot with your radio personality. I can see.
Yeah,
Let's
man. I mean,
yeah.
it's one of those things, man. Being poor. I mean, honestly, like all jokes aside, we were so poor at one point that my cousin and my sister and I were fighting over bean juice, not beans, but bean juice because we're that hungry. So like, we make fun of that all the time. That's why my cousin he goes, "I hate beans." I hate beans because of that.
Right. Well, let's jump ahead. I know we were kind of talking a little bit, but let's get into how it was that you maybe started to develop this um interest in exploring maybe radio, or maybe not even into radio yet, but just kind of exploring how that even came about.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's the thing was is like we didn't have much toys, much ways to entertain ourselves. So a lot of the times, because TV was like if you didn't watch the show that day, then you missed the show, because there wasn't a lot of reruns. It was just new shows coming on. So what I would do is if my cousins missed the show, I would just basically retell the whole story of what happened at the show. So that's how I started learning how to mimic and imitate voices is by telling them the story again using these character voices, and that's kind of how I developed that part of entertaining people, and everything for us was about roasting each other in comedy. So I would use my style and mix it in with these cartoon characters. So, move fast forward into in high school, I'm like 15, uh, and that's when I moved out. By the way, I moved out when I was 15 because I was like, I'm not moving to Idaho because my mom moved in Idaho in '91. So I'm not moving to Idaho. So I guess I'll see you around. She's like, you can't. You're only 15. I go, oh yeah, I can. I'm a man now. So my sister was 16 and her boyfriend had just turned 18. And so he goes, I could get us a place. So that's why we stayed. That was the first year. But anyways, in that time frame, again, we'd watch shows like this show called Martin with Martin Lawrence, and that's really when I started thinking, man, I could really be on radio, because I saw this guy who would do all these funny voices and characters and imitations and stuff. And in the show, Martin Lawrence is a radio personality. So that's when I started thinking like, hey, I could be on the radio. So, then I started doing the same thing that I would do with my cousins. And I would, the episode would come on, and then the next day I'd tell my friends about it. And then I'd imitate the characters too, and I tell them this whole story. So then they're like, this is really good. You should do a radio show. And I was like, right. And that's when I started going like, I can't. So, you have these tape decks, where you can put a mic on and record. So I started doing all these different voices, and imitating, whether it's cartoon characters or whether it's politicians or, or celebrities at the moment. I was trying to learn how to mimic their voices and mimic their mannerisms and stuff. So when I would do these mock radio shows, it was a bunch of people talking, hanging out, but it was really just me doing it. And so I would do that for for my siblings, and they just crack up and they're like, that's so freaking funny, it's such a funny and I was like, you need to be on radio. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm in high school, and there's back in those days, for people who are familiar with that career day, they'd have these books, these big fat books that had all these type of careers, and then you'd open the book and it'd give you a description on the career, and so the first thing I do is like, I'm already got this in my head, I could do radio, I could do that. So I start looking for radio broadcasting or radio. So I saw radio broadcasting, and that's when I'm looking at it and I'm going like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I'm trying to see what you need to be in radio broadcasting. And that's when one of the counselors comes up to me and he says, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm, looking at careers, man. I'm trying to check it out. And he goes, what is it? What is that? And I go, oh, radio broadcasting. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, radio broadcasting. Why would you want to do that? I said, because I think I'd be pretty good at it. My friends say I'm pretty good. And you know how we are with adults when we're teenagers. We don't really talk to them. We don't really show our true selves to adults. We're with our friends, we're super lively and jokesters and stuff. But with adults, we're like more, respect, And so he goes, I've never seen you talk. And you couldn't do that. He goes, you know what? And not only that, that's really hard to get into radio. Instead, you know what you should do? He goes, guys, another book goes, metal work, like welding and stuff. You'd be better at that. It's a good trade. You make some good money doing that. Do that instead. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess it is too hard. It's probably like, yeah, it's not something I could do. So I just kind of was like, all right. So I started looking at the metal work stuff. But the thing was about me is I've always been really good with my hands, like I'm really good at working and stuff like that, just because I was like that. So I thought, yeah, man, I was ready to make some money. So I got really good at doing that kind of construction stuff. But I honestly put that to the side. I let it to rest. And when my friends asked me, I was like, yeah, man, ain't gonna happen. Not for me,
Right.
So
Well,
that's
real
kind
quick,
of how I got. What's
real
that?
quick, let's go back to where you're when you're having this conversation with your counselor, because you figure the counselor's there to support you, to kind of say, hey, yeah, no, you'll be good at that, or why do you want to do that, or what makes it interest. But he just kind of like basically shot it down and said, no,
Yeah.
this isn't for you. And so that is something, because I think we've all had similar experiences where somebody's told us something, then we hang on to that for years because somebody told us that we can't do something or we shouldn't do something. And so, how did that impact you as far as, man, you're excited about doing this radio, you're excited, and all of a sudden, this adult who's is a counselor, so you kind of respect what they're saying, tells you no to don't do that. How did that affect you?
It definitely affected me in a negative way because it got me doubting myself. That started the self-doubt. Before I didn't wasn't like that. I didn't doubt my capabilities. And I think an adult telling me that was unreachable, an unreachable dream, it made me think that, yeah, that's not what I'm meant to do. I guess if this is what this guy's saying, he must know, you know. And so that really did kind of throw a monkey wrench in my dream, you know. And and I did believe it for a long time. I even believed it to the point where I got into radio. You know, I think even at this moment in time, I feel like I have the imposter syndrome. You know.
Well, I think that's kind of a legitimate thought because, like I said, I had this a while back. I did this post, and we were talking about how the words you speak, you got to watch the words you speak because they can not only affect somebody just the next day or a couple days after, but how they have this long-term effect on
Mhm,
people. And they create, and there's a little thing like for you, you got this little thing in your back of your mind that still remembers what he said about you getting into radio. But the good
mhm.
thing is, obviously, you didn't continue to listen to that you eventually did break into radio. So let's talk about how you got into construction. You started doing construction work, and so how from that part of construction work, at what point did you start going? Yeah, let's get back to this radio dream that I had.
Um, honestly, it was I was but I was early 20s still, so I was 21 maybe. I got yeah, I just got out of the military. I got out of the Navy, out of the active Navy, because I was still in a reserves Navy. But I started working setting manufactured homes. So I started doing that while I was doing manufactured homes. I just anything that I learned, man, anything that I'm given a job that I'm given, I try to do my best that I can at it. I could be a dishwasher, I could be a toilet bowl cleaner. I don't care what it is. I'm gonna do the best that I can. I want to be the best toilet cleaner there is, you know. And so that's kind of how I was with construction. So like and there was always signs there, you know, because when I was putting together manufactured homes, I went from just a regular, you know, regular Joe to a foreman to a supervisor to then, you know, learning how to excavate and actually build the forms and foundations and everything. So I did I knew how to do everything from the beginning to end, from the plumbing to the roofing to everything. I know how to do it all. And I did all that by the time I was, yeah, 24. And then I started my business because once I felt like I could do my own business doing this. So I started my own business doing it. But even while doing that, I would listen to a station called the Music Monster. And it was the first station I hear in Idaho because you know, fast forward, I ended up moving to Idaho, obviously, you know, after the military to visit my mom. But anyways, that's where I met my wife. But while working, because you know, manufacturing homes, I would always, you know, have one of those big DeWalt radios, right? It was just a radio, so we would play the radio, and that's what we listened to, the Music Monster, and that's when I heard like hip hop music being played in Idaho, and I was like, the heck station is this, you know? And I was like, man, that's a cool station, you know? And I really started liking it. So I'd listen to it all the time. And fast forward, I'm 26, and that's when the kind of the market crashes for manufactured home business and all that. So kind of lost everything. I lost my business, I lost my house, lost my car, I lost everything. Like from going super fast all the way up, as fast as I went up, that's how fast I crashed. And so I lost everything. And I just was pretty sad about it. Like I was like, dang, what the heck am I going to do now? So I had no other, I mean, I had so much knowledge on construction that a lot of places wouldn't want to hire me because they said I was overqualified and they couldn't pay me what I needed to be paid. I was like, I don't care, give me any job. They're like, yeah, no, we're looking for just peons, you know,
Mm.
gophers, you know. And I was like, son of a gun. So I started all over again. I started washing semi trucks. So I was washing semi trucks. While I was doing that, I really disliked it. So I thought like, well, you know, I was in the military. I was a gunner's mate. I used to do a lot of security type stuff. So I thought, let's just try law enforcement, you know? So, and that's when I got a job working the Jerome County Sheriff's Department. So I was a deputy sheriff, but I was in the jail at that moment. And while I was in the jail, again, there's another funny connection to that, you know. Um, I would be the graveyard jailer. And so I thought like a lot of these guys, if they'd be waiting for me to get there, like Garcia comes in. They're like, because the way I see it is, look, man, you're already serving your time in this county jail. Why am I going to treat you like crap? You're already in here. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You're already serving your time. So I wouldn't be that hard nosed, mean guy. I'd just be like, hey, do this. And they'd respect me. The respect was reciprocal. So what I would do at night, I'd turn on the intercom and I'd be like, yo, what's up, people? They'd be like, yo, hey, Garcia's in. You know, they get all excited. I was like, all right, I'm taking requests, you know.
So at
I
this,
switched I switched the computer speaker to the intercom, and I play them some jams, and I'd be like, "Yo, coming to you with this, whatever." I was playing around, and they'd be like, "Oh man," you know. And I don't know if I ever tell you this story, Destin, but they'd be like, "Yeah, this is awesome." And so that's why they would get so excited. So I do this on like on Saturday nights, you know, because everybody was like, you know, they checked out, man. They didn't care. So Saturday nights, I give them their special show, you know, and play some jams. Yeah, some people be like, all right, turn the music off. I'm trying to sleep, you know. Everybody else be like, shut up, you know, play the
so
jams or whatever. So
yeah,
I do
at this
this all
time,
the time. So what's that?
I said at this time while you're going through all this, are you now married at this time? Do you have a family at this point?
Yes. Well, the reason I stayed in Idaho to begin with was because I met my now wife, and she was visiting from Modesto as I was visiting from SoCal, you know. So we both came at the same time, and we met here, and we just connected because we were both from Cali, you know, and we were both planning to go back at some point, but that's when we had our first two daughters, and we thought like, well, you know what, we should probably raise them here. You
Right.
know, this would be a bit better place to raise them. So I already had my two daughters. So while this is happening, I'm working floor coverings with a buddy of mine. So I'm doing like, because I still got to make some money on, ends meet, and the sheriff's department wasn't paying as much as I wanted to. And not only that, they paid monthly. So I had to make sure I had money in the middle, so of the month. So I'd work construction too. So I do floor coverings and stuff like that with my buddy. And then I'd work the sheriff's department. And I was in the National Guard at that time too. So National Guard, floor coverings, and sheriff's department. So I was doing all those three jobs, and eventually I stopped working at the sheriff's department. Um, it wasn't for me, you know. And I know everybody was really sad. They're like, I just felt, I don't know, I can't even explain what I felt there, but it just wasn't for me. I thought I wanted to do it when I was a kid. I wanted to be a cop, so I tried it, because one of those things for me is like, I'm gonna try everything that I wanted to do when I was a kid. I got an opportunity to do it, so I'm gonna try it.
Right.
And wanted to be in the military. I was in the military, So that's the thing, is that so I stopped working there, and I started doing floor coverings with my buddy, and that's while we were working on a house. It just so happens he was the GM, Larry Johnson, who owned locally owned radio, which owned the Music Monster. And well, everybody knows me by this time that I do these kind of jokester stuff, but I've already been doing a lot of music prior to that, because creativity is just my thing. Excuse me, I knew that I wanted to be on the radio some way or another. So like, whether it was having music on the radio or being on the radio, that's just what I wanted to do. So that's why when the guy told me that I couldn't do radio, I said, yeah, you're probably right. Then I guess I'll be a rapper. So I started rapping way back then, because nobody could tell me I couldn't do that, because the thing was, this hip hop was so fresh and new back then that people didn't understand it. So I just made it. I just started making music. So fast forward, I'm connected with this guy who does floor coverings here, and that's what he would do. He would host and MC lowrider shows, car shows, and stuff like that. So I would go with him and help him too. So I would DJ as well. I would do that. I would do all these different things, because it was in me, do music. So I'm I'm hanging out with him or whatever, and by that time, me and him have done tons of car shows, and I've performed many times, and I'm just, uh, so we get to we're working, and then there's this the guy, the GM says, uh, yeah, man, I heard you have a good voice for radio. And I was like, nah, man. Because I don't, again, like when it's somebody like my adults, like I'm just a lot different, I'm way more calm, and I'm not like I am with my friends, I goof around a lot. So I'm like, no, 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 it's not me, man. And then my buddy Ed's like, yeah, man, you should hear this guy. He's so good at telling stories, the way he does voices, this and that. He goes, let me hear some of it. And I told Larry, I was like, nah, man. See, what I do is like Spanish radio. I just goof around with Spanish radio, and I do all these voices and stuff. He goes, well, let me hear it. And I was like, do you know Spanish? He goes, no, but I still want to hear it. So I was like, all right. So I said something. He goes, man, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And I was there. And he goes, and then Ed's like, you should give him a job. And he's just laughs, And I think he already knew that this was going to happen, right? I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But so fast forward, then there's this contest because we listen to the Music Monster a lot. And the contest says, you think what it takes? You think you have what it takes to be the next Monster DJ? And I was like, oh, what's that? It's Make Me the DJ contest. And and I'm like, what? Because I was ready to leave again, back to California and start a business with my cousin. So I was like, I was just here just for a little bit to save money to leave. And he's like, did you hear that? They're looking for a DJ. You need to try that, Joe. And I was like, man, nobody gonna want me to be on the radio out here. And I could just hear that counselor in the back of my head telling me, you can't do this. And so it's like, nah, man, you have that voice. You can do this. And I go, I don't know, man. So I just ignore it. So they have these, they're doing all these different live broadcasts where they're saying, hey, come out here to get an application. If you think you got what it takes, get an application. They're doing this whole thing. So Ed's like, have you gone yet? Have you gone to get the application? Yeah, I will. And he goes, you need to go get it, man. You need to go sign an application. I go, I will. But the thing is I just was too afraid to fail. I didn't want, I think I was nice to dream about it, but I didn't want to like actually get to the point where it was so close to me that I would just lose it. So I just didn't want to try. But Ed was really adamant about having me do it. So he told me one day, hey, let's go to lunch. And I said, all right. So I went to lunch with him, and he took me to the broadcast where they were doing the final stop to get applications. And so he goes, I'm having you have to fill out that application. And I was like, oh, dude, I told you I was. He goes, no, go fill it right now. So I get out of the truck. Okay. So I get out of the truck, and then Howard Mayhem, that was the guy that was the program director for the Monster at that point. He was breaking down. I go, hey, they're already breaking down, man. I'm turning around. So I started walking back, and then Howard's like, hey, what are you doing? And I said, what? And he goes, were you going to try to get an application? I go, yeah, but he goes, oh, don't worry, man. Here. I go, but I saw your closing. He goes, no, come here. Fill this out. So he makes me fill it out. And I was like, all right, man, well, thanks. I got to go. And he goes, wait. He goes, you didn't finish filling it out. I go, finish what? He goes, what's your radio name going to be? And I said, I didn't think about that. You have to already have that already? He goes, yeah. And so, me doing all the cartoon characters and stuff, I was really good at doing Johnny Bravo. So I just said, Joey Bravo. And he goes, good name, man. And I left, and, that's how it happened.
So that's kind of interesting how you talked about that, because I think from what I get is you wanted to do this, but it was also maybe a confidence thing because of what the counselor said. There was a lot of confidence in there, or lack of the confidence, I guess, that you were able to do this thing, and you were scared to take that leap, to get into that. And it was actually your friend who saw the potential in you that you didn't see in you, right? So you have your counselor who told you one thing, but now you've got this friend, and you've already been out in the community, you get together friends, you do all these voices and stuff, and your friend says, let's do this. So he pretty much, if it wasn't for your friend taking you out there, you wouldn't be Joey Bravo on the radio, more than likely right now.
I wouldn't. I owe him a lot for that, Obviously the work I put in is, I have a lot to do with it, but he was the pivotal moment. He has everything to do with that pivotal moment for me to get out there. what's crazy about that is, years later, Howard and I are now working together again. And he told me that that was the final application that he gave out. And he said, yeah, you were the last person to grab an application. And, you know, there was 20 people they ended up choosing to do this contest, and it ran kind of like an American Idol contest. So every week you'd get kicked out or whatever. I think it was 2 people got taken out every week. So you'd have voting started on Friday and would end like at 10 a.m. on Monday. I ended up getting to the end of it. Every week, Ed was really adamant about giving me um, that confidence. He's like, "You got this, man." I just remember him saying, "It's in the bag. It's in the bag." Every week, I'd get to the next one. One thing I would do is, because like I said, I've been a rapper for a long time, so I was master at improvising, so I'd freestyle or whatever. So they'd ask me, "What show do you want to be on this week?" For your live show. And I said, "Oh, I, I was always about, strategy. So I thought I needed to be on the most popular show, which was Road Rash with JT Powers. And I wanted to be on at 5. So I would get on his show and we would talk smack or whatever. And then I'd end my appearance with a freestyle rap. So I'd ask him, "Hey, man, tell me some stuff to rap about." And I just rap about whatever. And people would be so impressed because they weren't used to hearing people do that kind of stuff. So they were just impressed. And then I just get crazy votes. I ended up getting at the last thing was I had to do a live broadcast with the finalists. So there was 2 finalists, and I had to do a live broadcast. But one thing for me is, like I said, a master of improv, and not only that, like I wasn't afraid to be on stage. I've been on many stages by that time. Like it was to me being on the microphone is like my natural habitat. So I got the microphone, I started doing my thing. People were like, "Oh," and then since I had so many connections through the car club circuit and all that, all these people came to support me. With lowriders, there's guys hitting switches and stuff, and it was crazy. It was like a big old party. But what was really cool is the community themselves is who wanted me here. Like they would uh, uh, make posters and flyers and all these different things and put them on their cars. Vote for Joey Bravo, vote for Joey Bravo and stuff. As a matter of fact, right here I got a tattoo with these elements. So these 4 elements here are 4 elements of hip hop. The MC, which is the rapper, the graffiti artist, the break dancer, and the DJ. Those are all here. So these right here were drawn by a close friend of mine. So he made these posters. He hand drew them, and they made all these flyers. So there was all these different element pictures, and people it would say vote for Joey Bravo. So those were on everybody's cars. And like I said, the community was the one who wanted me here. They're the ones who voted me in here. And I ended up winning it. I ended up winning, which the contest was to win a 3-month summer job, late night show. You got $1,000, bonus, and then you got a year supply of Mountain Dew. That's the best part. So, it helped me stay, caffeinated and focused, So,
Well, it sounds
but
like
yeah,
you already had plenty of energy, so the Mountain Dew just kind of added on.
it just ended up good, man. I was wild by
Right,
that time.
right.
But it was cool, and I was supposed to be a 3-month gig. So honestly, I thought to myself, okay, when this is done, I'm going back to Cali, right? And then LL Cool J was in the background. I don't think so. So I wasn't gonna come back. But at the end of those 3 months, I thought it was the last of my show and everything. And uh, Howard Mayhem, the program director, was there with me. He goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna be here with you because it's your last show. We're gonna let you say goodbye and everything to your listeners." He goes, "But I have to be here with you so you don't say anything crazy." And I was like, "Nah, man, I'm good. I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm just a blessing. I got to live out my dream job for 3 months, man. I'm good. I'm good, baby." So I was really excited. I was really happy about it. So people were calling. The lines are just blowing up, because back when everybody would call in and the lines wouldn't stop ringing, and people kept calling and saying, "We don't want him to go. You can't let this guy go." Da 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 da. And I was really taken back by it. I was like, "That's freaking beautiful, man. These freaking people are awesome, man." Like, and at that moment, I was like, our radius of coverage was insane. It was like you're familiar with Twin. I mean, you're going. It was from Twin all the way to American Falls, from Twin all the way to Ontario, Oregon. That's what we would cover,
Mm.
and all the way to the Wood River Valley, and all the way to like Jackpot. So that was the area that it would cover. It was like pretty much all of South Central Idaho, and it was wild. And it was just insane. All of southern Idaho was covered by this station. So anyways, the show's almost over, and then he says, "Yeah, we're not gonna let you go, buddy. You're gonna stick around with us, man. We want to offer you a job." And I was like, "What?" So I kept the job. It was 4.25 an hour. It wasn't much,
But the
but
thing about it was your dream job though, right?
it
Of
was my
course, it was
dream job.
425, but it's like this is my
Mhm.
dream job now, right?
Exactly. And I knew that now that I have it, I can't let it go. So I made sure that I did everything I could in my power to keep it. So I would work 6 a.m. to about 6. It's about 12-hour shifts, doing floor coverings. Go home, take a quick shower, then I'd go and do my radio show from 7 to midnight every weekday. Only day I was off was on Sundays. Um, and then I would also DJ nightclubs way at night. When I was done, I'd go DJ at nightclubs, so I'd make some more money doing that. So I had again still 3 jobs. It's just my thing. I would do 3 jobs, and I kept doing it. There was a lot of people telling me I couldn't keep this job. They're like, it's kind of pointless. You're only getting paid 4.25 an hour. Like, what are you gonna do with this? I'm gonna do a lot more than this. I told them. I got family members telling me like, it's fun, man. You did it for a bit, but like, come on, man. Like, are you gonna really like make this your career? I said, yeah, and that's why I'm doing all this other stuff. This is where I'm gonna be. And I stuck around for a bit, and then 2008 hits around, and that's the Great Recession, and that when that hit, it was getting close to the end of the year. And so they had to let go of all the part-timers. So I was one of the part-timers, and then let me go. And honestly, that was really hard for me. I was devastated because I was like, I was so close. That's what I was afraid of the whole time. I was afraid of having it right here at my fingertips and then losing it. So I told myself, see what happens when you dream big, you lose it, man. And I was really torn apart. Um, yeah, I felt like crap. I just kind of wanted to give up. I was just really sad. By that time I had my other son, and then 2 sons. I had 2 sons, so now I had 4 kids. And
Wow.
now I was struggling to feed them. Um, and I wasn't making much money. I wasn't even making enough money to pay for my rent. So I had to move out of the house that I was at and live with my mom for a bit, just because I couldn't afford it anymore.
So
Um,
what point did that actually turn around for you? I mean, from being the part-time to actually now you're going to this is actually it.
well, fast forward it wasn't a lot of months. It wasn't even a whole year. I thought I don't want to do construction no more. Like, my body hurts, like it's like sometimes some of these contractors don't pay me on time. I just got tired of it. So I thought like I want to do an office job. So I started doing loans, payday loans. And it paid me, at least it was consistent. I'd still DJ nightclubs like Fridays and Saturdays every weekend, which honestly paid me more than the actual loan job. But the loan job was a consistent paycheck. So I started doing that. While I was doing loans, I had a friend of mine, Peggy Kidd, which is our account executive here. And she would come in every time. They need to bring you back. And I go, oh, they don't want me back. She goes, no, trust me, they need to bring you back. The station is not the same without you. You need to come back. And I was like, it's not up to me, Peggy. I'm not, it's not, it's the boss. It's the main guy. He's not going to bring me back. He says he can't hire me. She goes, we'll figure it out. I mean, have you ever done sales? Not really. She goes, just get into sales. They're looking for a salesperson. Get into sales, and then we'll figure it out from there. And I said, I don't know, man. And so I was like, I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to go through heartache again. So I just didn't want to do it. But Peggy was really consistent and was not gonna let me stop. So she'd go almost every week and sit there with me. When you coming back? When you come back? So finally, she goes, "There is an opening. Just come out here. Just talk to Larry. Tell him you want to do sales." I said, "Okay, all right, screw it." So I go in there. I tell Larry, hey, I want to do a sales job. He goes, you want to do a sales job? I said, yeah. You know, you're not going to be on the radio, right, Joe? And I said, yeah, I know. And he goes, because you're getting hired for sales. It has nothing to do with being on air. And I said, yeah, I know. And he goes, okay, because I do like you and I do want to hire you, but I just want you to understand that. And I said, yeah, I know. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I just kept hearing Peggy, all you got to do is get your foot in the door. We'll figure it out from there. So I said, yeah, I know. In my back of my mind, I was like, for now, right? And so that's when I started getting confidence. He got me the job, and I was like, let's go. So I started doing sales. While I was doing that, one of the program director for the Monster at that time was not getting along with the traffic manager, which they would have a noon show. They didn't like each other. So she goes, hey, come on the show and hang out with us. And so at first I didn't know that they didn't like each other. I thought that they just wanted me to hang out. Every time I would come on their show on Fridays, their texting and their interaction would just blow up. Everybody's like, oh, I'm so happy to hear him again. Everybody get excited to hear me again, right? So they were like, yeah. And then so Larry's like, what are you doing? I go, oh, I'm just hanging out with with Chelsea. This helps sales boss. When people hear me, then it's on top of the mind. He goes, okay, but just right now on the lunch hour. I said, I know. In the back of my mind, I was like, this is just a start, baby.
You had a plan.
Yeah, I had a plan. So then, I'm talking to, clients and stuff. And one of the guys, a tattoo artist, which he's the one that did some of these tattoos for me back then. He goes, I want to be on your radio station. I really do. But I'm not paying for anything unless I sponsor a show that you're hosting. And I said, oh, they wouldn't want me on the radio anymore. Well, you go tell your boss that I'll spend, and this is 2010, 2011. He goes, you tell your boss that I'll spend $500 a month. I don't care if he gives me one day of a show that I sponsor your show. That's what I want until I'm not going to do anything unless that. So I go tell Larry, hey man, this guy, he really adamant about me doing a show, hosting the show or something. And he'll pay $500 a month for one day a week. It was 1 day a week. I said, yeah. He goes, I don't care. He doesn't care if it's Saturdays. He just wants to pay for it on Saturday. Right. I said, $500 for 4 days. And he's all about money, man. He goes, all right, but only Saturdays. All right. Only Saturdays. I said,
always throwing that one little, okay, all your.
Man, I was like, okay, yeah, man, I know. And I go, for now, in the back of my head, because I was like that. By then I was like, this, now that I got this job, now that I'm back here, there's nothing that's going to stop me from keeping this. There's nobody who's going to stop me. There's nothing. It's these negative thoughts, all these things that I've told myself that I couldn't do are just going to get pushed away because I believe that I can make this happen now. This is my second shot, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. If it wasn't for me being where I'm going to be here right now, while we're talking, right? And so the program director, she talked to me one day and she was kind of crying. She goes, I don't want to work here anymore. I said, why not? This job's so much fun. She goes, I just don't like it. I want to be around my kids. I want to raise my kids. I don't like this job. She goes, but you love this job. And I said, yeah, I do. I really do love this job. She goes, if I quit right now, will you take my job? And I was like, what? And I was like, no, I mean, I don't want your job like that. No. And he goes, but you would take it if I quit, huh? And I go, well, yeah, but no. And she goes, she gets up out of the studio, walks over to the office and tells him she quits. So he goes, somebody comes and gets me. She said, Renee comes and gets me. And she says, hey, Larry wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh, about what? He goes, he wants to talk to you right now. And I was like, going there, and I'm like, so I'm sitting there kind of like, oh crap, I hope he doesn't think that I made her quit, And he goes, Chelsea just quit. And I said, no, she did. And he goes, yeah. And she said that you take her job. And I was like, yeah. He goes, you would? He goes, yeah. Okay, but you're just going to be the assistant program director, right? And that's it, but you still got to do sales. And I said, okay, for now. So from there, obviously, he just said, you're just too good at what you do, man. We want you on the radio. So as soon as I took over, yeah, this was 2010, so the end of 2010. or starting in 2010. That's right. He says, we're going to make you the program director for this station now. And you don't have to do sales no more. I said, yeah, let's go. As soon as he gave me that, I pushed our station from our target demographic. We were like 3, I got it to #1 again. And then
Wow.
from there, it's consistently been up there. But the thing was, is I had all these ideas and this vision of how I wanted the station to sound and how I wanted it to flow. And so I just wasn't going to stop, you know. I wanted to write commercials as well and utilize my voices, you know, and do all these different things. So I asked them if I could be the production director. So I took the job as the production director. So I started doing that. I got really good at writing script and everything and creating. So I got really good at that aspect. So then I was like, okay, so program director, production director. The next stop has got to be an operations manager, you know. Um, so you know, I'm trying to do all these things, you know, and then I'm trying to learn as much as I can. They got even a coach to help me refine my style, which I really needed, and I started using all these tools to kind of get better at my job. So I was prepared to be an operations manager, and then this really super cool dude that I love right now, like my brother, got hired as the operations manager. I was like, what? I thought I was going to be the next guy. But you know what? I am so glad that I didn't get the job at that moment because I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't prepared. You know, when you came here, you gave me a lot of tools. I don't know if you realize how many tools you gave me and how you helped me be more confident and how you helped me um, really kind of structure another part of me that was still running wild. When you left, I was still scared, and I remember we talked about it. I was like, I don't know if I can do this like you, man. Like you're badass, dude. You're such a structured, just an amazing guy, man. And you know, with you, the confidence you gave me and believing in me, that's what got me where I'm at here. But there's a lot of people that help me that way, right? There's people now through my life that I'm surrounded with that give me that confidence even when I don't feel confident. And you know,
Yeah.
we've spoke about this many times that it's the company we keep, it's the people that were surrounding us to keep us from falling, you know. And when we're falling, they're there to help us out. And they believe in us when we don't even believe in ourselves. And yeah, there's a lot of different moments that, you know, when you're getting to the next level, you're always afraid. And that's one thing that I've learned as the older I get. When I'm afraid and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I could do this, that's when I know it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And
Right.
so I keep going and I'm not afraid anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a little bit hesitant, but I'm not afraid to jump to make that next step. I just don't want to stop. And I know there's still more to do. You know,
Right.
I know there's
So
more
let's
to do.
let's kind of bring so Joey and I, this is actually just so people that are watching or listening to this understand this. Joey and I met at the station. I came there. I came to work there. I did the midday show on the country station, the Bull there, and became operations manager. That's how we met through that. So I just wanted to bring people up that that's how we know each other. We've grown close. You and your family, they're great friends. They're my Idaho family up in Twin Falls. But so that's how we know each other. And eventually I did leave and I did, I encouraged because I thought, like you said, though, there's certain times where you're just not ready for it. But, when I left, I just saw that here was this, not only were you very passionate about your job, and this is where I kind of want to transition to, you talked about earlier that your community was behind you when you were going after this job. So in a way, you've kind of taken that fact that the community was behind you and you've kind of turned that around to be there for the community because I know that you're very involved in the community. And one of the things I really wanted to bring about was one of the things I know that's near and dear to your heart is Sleep in Heavenly Peace, the bunk beds across America. Can you touch on that program and how that affects you and your involvement in that?
Yeah. Speaking on community, like it's one of those things. If the community backs you up, you always want to be there to reciprocate and give them back that same love they give you. And because of that, I always try to find things that I can give back. And one of those things was that with Sleep in Heavenly Peace. It's an organization, or a charity organization that helps out, kids that don't have beds. So their motto is, no one in our town sleeps on the floor. no kid in our town sleeps on the floor. So that was really close to me because, again, telling you from earlier that I was really poor. I didn't have a bed till I was about 10 or 11. Can't really remember when it was. It was so mid 80s, is when I had my first bed, and so because of that, I heard about this organization that was doing that. And this is before Luke Mickelson was on CNN and all these different things. They were just starting here in Kimberly, which is the town over. And I knew that there was a connection through a football league that was my son was playing football, and his name was Scott Butler, and he was the president. So I go, hey, you're the guy from Sleep in Heavenly Peace. He goes, well, I'm the president. I go, so I told him the story. I go, I want to help you guys. I don't know how, but I have an idea of how to help you, but I want to talk to you about it. So he says, yeah, man, I'd be happy to get your help. And I said, okay. So the story was like, I told him I didn't have a bed till I was this old. So I really want to help kids have that, because it sucks not sleeping on the floor. I mean, there was a point where I was sleeping on a coffee table because the apartment that we lived in was cockroach infested. So, you sleep on the ground, you're going to get covered by cockroaches. I'd have slippers on because if I'd step off the coffee table at night, I'd be crunching on, stepping on cockroaches like pop rocks, And so I just didn't want that for anybody. That's just what I see in my mind. Like, I don't want anybody else to go through that. So anyways, I do a charity event called Hip Hop Holiday. This is a concert that I put together with all musical friends, and this is going on the 14th year. And I wanted to give to another organization. So what we do is a bunch of us musicians get together and we do a show, and we don't charge at the door, but it's donation based. So you bring toys or food or cash donations. And so what we do is we team up with another organization to help them and give them the stuff. So I thought, like, hey, what'd be cool? I told Scott, if, we build beds with you and we deliver them around Christmas to those that need them, but we also put together a Santa Claus package for them, with gifts for all the kids and wrapping paper and all this stuff. And then Winco gift cards, like grocery gift cards and stuff like that. We could do all that, and these kids have food, toys. You guys have a Christmas dinner and all that. And he says, yeah, I'd love to do that. He goes, let's do it. So we started doing the first year that we were going to go deliver. We were all excited. A bunch of my artist friends came with me too. And he says, he just pulled me to the side and he says, hey, man, this is going to be your first one and you're going to really love doing this. And one thing about when we do this, and everybody's told me the same thing, there's a sign. You're going to see a sign. There's something that's going to tell you you're doing the right thing. And it's only for you to see. And you're going to see it. When you're doing this stuff, just pay attention to all the little details. So going in reverse, I got my first bed when I told you, like 10 or 11. And it was only a cot. It was like a military cot from my uncle. So my uncle came to visit, and my uncle was supposed to stay and live with us. But he saw that I didn't have a bed, and he goes, hey, I'm going to go back, to Ventura, because at that moment we were living in Central California, Porterville. He goes, I'm going to go back to Ventura, but I just needed, tie up some loose ends, get some whatever money, whatever. And then I'll come back. But until then, just sleep on this bed. So you're not sleeping on the floor. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So my uncle, he's a really good dude. One thing about him is he was a really tough guy, so there was this guy who was really jealous of him and would always pick a fight with him. He came at my uncle once, and my uncle beat him up. Second time he came at my uncle with a crowbar. My uncle took the crowbar away and beat him up. So this time he didn't make it out of it because this guy set him up. My uncle was trying to help these guys get a job. But from what I understand, these guys set him up with that guy. And they asked him for a ride, and they went to some orchard field or something, and they killed him. So he was murdered, and so he never came back, and so I didn't really sleep on that bed for a while because it just kind of felt guilty, like I had that feeling of like I'd rather have my uncle than this bed, so so fast forward into delivering these beds, and we go to this house. I think it was the second house that we were delivering to, and we go upstairs and they told us, hey, this is where we're gonna put the beds at. So there's like blankets and stuff all laid out here, but then there's this big pile of blankets over here. And I was like, okay, do you guys want me to move these blankets? They're like, yeah. I go, oh, what's this pile? Is this just clothes? Or oh, she goes, oh no, that's where the twins sleep. And so I was like, oh, so I went and grabbed the pile of clothes to move it. And when I uncovered it, it was a cot. And you know, it's one of those things, man. Like and we spoke about this a few times. It was always really hard to talk about it. But when I saw that, it was just a sign for me. Like my uncle saying, "Hey, you're doing the right thing." And so, yeah, man, I turned around and I was tearing up. But when I turned around, I saw Scott looking at me. He's a big guy. He's like 6'4", big dude. Looks at me and he just gives me a hug, man. And
Wow.
that was really sweet. But ever since then, we've been doing it, and we've been. I want to say we've been connected with them for at least 6, 7 years.
Wow.
So we do that now. And I wanted to do something similar to that with for the summer. So I started, remember, the backpack kickback, and that was also getting backpacks and school supplies for kids and stuff. But it all boils down to this, man. When we're kids and stuff, we act a certain way, right? And maybe adults don't really fully understand why we're acting out or why we're doing what we're doing. But going to school, I wasn't the greatest of students, but it was mostly because backed out because I wasn't prepared. So I wasn't prepared with school supplies. I didn't get sleep. I didn't eat right. So instead of me acting like I really wanted to learn and do stuff, I just act out and act like I didn't care about school, which I did. But I didn't do any of that. And I think that was kind of detrimental to the first part of school. Because I was always really smart, man. I mean, I was an honor student for a couple of years. And this is because I really just tried. I tried to do it.
Well,
Uh,
that's one thing about you that I've learned about you over the years is, pretty much once you set your mind to something, you do it. I know, like fitness, for example. I mean, you're very involved in fitness. You stay active in that. You get into competitions and stuff like that. So I know how important that is to you. But when you're talking about students, maybe this is a good time to talk about that. You've gone through all this experience. You've gotten into radio. You're giving back to the community through the hip hop holidays, the backpack, all that stuff, and sleep in heavenly peace, building the bunk beds. But there's also a part now where you're giving back to the schools because you have now transitioning into going to some of these schools and now being a motivational speaker to the students now. So tell us a little, real briefly, tell us a little bit about that and how does that impact you when you're speaking in front of these students who are yet to live out their lives and don't even know the circumstances that they're going through now, but also to realize that there's the unforeseens that are ahead of them. How do you prepare for that, and how do you get into that?
well, it all started with seeing the need, right? Going to these schools like delivering backpacks and seeing these kids having hard times, and then remembering what I went through, and also seeing, you know, you could see that same pain that I had in their eyes. And I just wanted to help them through that, and I wanted to express to them that there's a way out. There's always a way out. There's always a way to climb out of the nothing. I feel sometimes people that have more creative minds or whatnot are purposely put in the darkest of places just so they could see the light and help others do the same. And I think that all these lessons and hardships that I went through were on purpose so I could help those in need. And so I know these opportunities just arise out of nowhere at points. They invite me to schools and I tell them, what's going on, and I see the look in their eyes, like, man, this guy went through the same thing I went through. So I think I seen that one the first time it was at my son's school. My son Dico invited me to his school and talked to his counselor, and they got me in one of their classes, and I was able to talk to them and tell them about some of my hardships and stuff. But at first they were kind of like not paying attention, but by the end of it, I had their full attention. And it just really warmed my heart. I was like, I want to do this more. Because just like that counselor telling me that I couldn't do something, I want to tell them they can. Because if that little voice in their head stays there, that's what's going to propel them into the next step in life, right? That's going to switch their trajectory. And then fast forward, I ended up getting invited to go to a middle school in Jerome. This is when I said I want to do this. Um, I went to the school. Well, first, let me just back up real quick. There's this movie called McFarland USA with Kevin Costner. You ever seen that movie? It happened
No.
in McFarland, and it's about a track team.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so uh, uh, Tomas Valles, he's the main protagonist in the movie. So he's portrayed by this young man or whatnot. One of my favorite movies. I got a chance to meet him and interview him and talk to him. And I told him about these experiences that I was doing and stuff. And we had a lot of similarities, which is crazy that we lived in McFarland at the same time. but
Wow.
but we went through a lot of similarities. And I told him that I wanted to do that. And he says, then why aren't you doing it? Oh, I'm gonna do it. He goes, well, then why don't you? I said, yeah, I'll get into it. He goes, you need to start doing it. And you know who I thought of? Ed, when he says, then do it. So that's how I started doing more of these. But fast forward back into Jerome, right? I go to this school, and there were so much kids that wanted to go to this that they had to do 2 assemblies. So they split the school in half, and they sent the first one. And I've never been treated like that in my life. Like, I mean, to that extent, to where I went in there and the kids saw me and they started freaking out like I was some kind of a movie star. And I was like, what? I was like, I'm just here to talk to you kids, man. They listened to every word I said, both times. And, you know, they were asking me all these questions. I was answering their questions. I was giving them, hey, how do you work out? Hey, how much do you live? Do this, do that. I answered all their questions, gave them all these life lessons that I've learned and how much they can do the same that I can. And it was beautiful. When I was the second time, second assembly, I said, hey, I really want to take a picture of you guys. I know there's a lot of you guys because the second assembly, all these kids came with these papers, right? They kept doing this. They came in, they kept doing that. And they were like, yeah, screaming, right? And I got really close and I looked at that paper and there was a picture of me. All these kids had pictures of me that wanted me to sign them. And I was like, what? So I'm going like, I'm just looking around going like, what? What is happening? This is so surreal. I get a little emotional sometimes. And I just kind of like, all right, man, don't tear up here. And so I talk to these kids and I tell them all these things that they can do to kind of help them, these tools. And at the end of it, I said, okay, man, I see all you guys have, because every time I was asking questions, they wanted me to sign something. I go, when we're done here, I'll let you guys sign something, right? I'll sign something for you. Okay. So as soon as it was over, I was like, all right, man, let's take a picture. We got in about 10 minutes. The kids just buried me. I was like, throwing pictures. Some kids are like, sign my shoe, I'm signing their shoe. I'm doing all this, and I'm going like, what the heck is going on? The teachers are like, and I go, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was going to get out of control like this. They're like, we've never had this happen. It's so this is like, I'm going like, what in the heck? I'm just like, I couldn't even believe this is happening, right? Sign as many as I can, take as many pictures as I can. Anyways, they this was over, and I walk out like still in shock. And I get I keep getting alerts, and I'm just going like, I'm still kind of like, I can't believe this happened. So I get back to the station and I start seeing all these messages pop up on Facebook. Messenger hitting me up. Hey man, my nephew was there with you. I don't know what you told him, but man, it was cool because yeah, like I said, I get emotional, but they're like, I don't know what you told him, but man, you really lifted his spirits. You really made him feel empowered. And I got so many messages very similar to that. And I was like, yeah, they did listen. And I think to myself, if even a third of those kids really, really listen, like, man, I helped a third of those kids. And that to me is what made me say I have to keep doing this. Because it does suck, man, when you think that no that you're alone and you think that nobody's there to back you up, or you don't have a good support system, or you don't have these. There's so many things that come into play that make you not believe in yourself. If I could be that person that could give you a little bit of light to switch your trajectory into a positive place, and help you fulfill your dreams and your passions and stuff. Look, I'm a happy person. I'm pretty happy the majority of the time, but it's because I'm happy and content with what I do. I'm not a rich man, but I'm in the place that I want to be, in the place that I need to be.
Right. And it's not, you just touched on something. You're not a rich man, and it doesn't, I think that's a different meaning for people. There's rich in finances, but there's also rich in how you feel and
Yeah.
how rich in the love, not only that you receive, but also in the love that you give back to your community. And we talked about this, especially in radio, everybody strives to be number one, number one, number one. It's always, we got to be number one. And I know we talked about this, in what we do now, we've had that fun, we've had that success, but now it's not so much about being number one as it is as having an effect on one, like
Yep.
one
Exactly.
child, like you said, you get messages, hey, I don't know what you said to my kid, but man, they turned around. And that's when like you said, you get emotional on that, but that's when you got to know, you go, man, I can have an impact on this generation that's coming up.
Hmm. Yeah.
you know. So I know we got to be conscious of your time. I know you're at the station, and we've talked a lot about the radio station. Let's tell people we've talked about you being on the radio. So let's tell everybody how they can actually hear Joey Bravo on the radio. We've talked about it. So let's for those who don't know, obviously the area, or they may be listening to this a different part of the country or whatever. How can they listen to Joey Bravo?
Well, you can listen to me by streaming the station at ktpz927.com, or you can download the app, which the app is available at the Apple Store or Google Play. It's free. Just look up 927 The Music Monster, download the app. You can listen to it there. You can also, just get a hold of me via social media. Joey Bravo 208. Pretty much that's the handle everywhere that you can find. But you can listen to some of my segments, some of my funny videos that I post, invitations, stuff like that. But it's just a variation of stuff. I mean, if you want to listen to a podcast I do with my daughter, it's called Sipping Tea with Joey and Marie podcast. That one you can stream it anywhere. Um, that and then also, we were talking about motivational speaking, keynote speaking. I just made it official and want to start doing that a lot more. So if anybody would want me to go to their school, like just get at me either via social media, or you can go to create innovate inspire 208 at gmail.com, and you get a hold of me there, and we'll give you all the information you need to get us booked and stuff. And I would be happy to talk to your students. But the same thing, even if it's team building,
All right.
I could do team building. I could do a lot of different things. So yeah, that's just the different ways that you can connect with me.
All right. So two quick things. I know we talked about, I'm going to go back now to when you were filling out the application to go to work at the station, and it says, "What's the name of your show?" And you said, "Well, my favorite character was Johnny
Yeah.
Bravo," right? So
Uh-huh.
you got to do it for us. I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us some impression of Johnny Bravo.
Oh, Johnny Bravo. You want me to do Johnny Bravo? That one's,
Yeah.
I haven't done that one in a long time, but I'll try.
Well, you can do it. He's older now. You can add.
Oh man, how would he call me? See, that's you put me on the spot because I haven't done that one in years.
Okay,
I'll do some of the ones that I know how to do,
okay,
like
do that. Give us something that you do know that you can do now.
Winnie the Pooh. I used to read books to my girls, so that was my one of my favorites. Can you please tell me where Christopher Robin's baby? There's that one. There's Shaggy. Like for a man's scoop, I'm really scared right now. And then what else do we got? Uh, hey, I'm Mickey. There's that one. There's hey there, buddy boy. There's Goofy. There's so many of them. There's so many I could do. You
Well,
know what I mean?
like I said, you're the man of many voices. So, hey, before we wrap things up, though, wrapping it up on a more serious note, you've gone through a lot, from the counselor telling you no, to doubting yourself, to having friends believing in you, in your abilities, to push you on, despite the doubts that you had on yourself. Through all of this, if somebody's out there listening, what is maybe one or two takeaways that they can take from your experience that can help them moving on through life?
Mm. Uh, the way you learn to be resilient is really it's not simple, but I guess it's easy to explain. You are what you think about. If you think that you can't accomplish something, then you won't. But if you believe you can, you will. But the trick is to really believe in yourself, whether it's surrounding yourself with the right people, whether it's, you know, there's so much out there that you can, listen to where it's motivational speaking, whether it's something that's going to help you. Look up something on YouTube that says, how do I get over this? Look for something that'll help you to believe in yourself. I always do this exercise with a lot of the students that I do, but I always often have them, I tell them, okay, I want you to yell really loud, but not like where I can hear you, like within you, right? Like, the voice that you hear within you. Like, I want you to shout as loud as you can to the point that you're just so, you're almost shaking that you're yelling so loud, but nobody can hear you but you. Like, you got to yell within you. So I asked them, and then I asked the others, hey, did you hear this person yell? Did you hear this person? They're like, no. They're like, okay, that person that yelled really loud, that shook your inner core, that's the person that you need to be balanced with. That person needs to believe in you as much as the exterior, and vice versa. And you got to walk in unity with your inner being, your inner soul, your inner energy, as much as you do with your exterior. Like we often, especially the youth right now, really falls into that trap and gets bamboozled into thinking that perfection is beauty. But even perfection is not real. Virtual reality is what a lot of them are living in through their phones. There's people using filters, using this, using that, instead of just looking the way they look. We look this way. You're a beautiful you. You're not a beautiful this person or that person. You're a beautiful you. Beauty is in your imperfections, and believe that. Like, you're all beautiful. Everybody's beautiful in their own way. And you have to believe that, and you have to believe in yourself. Even when there's people that don't believe in you, you have to believe in your inner beauty, believe in your inner peace, believe in your inner strength. Just believe. Like they say, if you believe, you will achieve. And it's a fact. And I'm a living testament of that.
All right, Joey, again, thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it, buddy. Hope to catch up with you and your family very soon. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We'll make sure that folks have your contact information in the show comments as well. And by the way, if you're watching this and something resonated with you, please be sure to drop it in the comments below so we can get back to it and read that. And if there's something in this interview that you think can benefit somebody else who's going through a lot of stuff, through many obstacles, please be sure to share this episode with them. Also, like and subscribe to this channel. And if you know somebody who's going through a lot or has overcome a lot of obstacles and you think would be a great fit for our show, simply send an email to eaglefreedompresents@gmail.com. That's egofreedompresents@gmail.com. You can also go to the website, egofreedompresents.com, and there is a guest form on there that you can fill out. Now, as we end the show, I want to end it with what Joey just said, and I wrote it down. I wanted to get it just right. He says, "You're not a beautiful this person or that person. You're a beautiful you. Beauty is in your imperfections." Thank you for joining us.